will still be under general community quarantine all throughout November. Now, how does this bode for business owners who, as it is, already have to deal with shelling out for their employees' 13th month pay? Now, to talk about that, we have Jose Roland Moya. He is the Director General of the Employers Confederation of the Philippines. Good morning, Sir Roland. Great to have you with us on the show.
Good morning,
Good
sir.
morning.
All right, sir. Let's kick things off, of course, with that bit of news. NCR under GCQ together with other areas like Batangas. How might this affect business owners yet again?
Well, of course, it's a welcome development because the the shift to GCQ would mean that more businesses are going to operate, and the economy is slowly opening up, and that means that workers will start going back to work, and the economy would be more or less operational now.
But at the same time, are there any other rooms for easing that you would like to see at least being implemented? I mean, for the past few weeks, we have been seeing travel restrictions as well as curfew hours, in fact, already being eased. Would lower restrictions to MGCQ be needed, or are there further easing that you would like to see?
I think one area that should be looked into is the transportation. We know for a fact that uh, the restrictions are still very much in place, and well, we could see that people are still lining up, and we have long queues for people to get onto the public transport like buses, uh, uh, jeepneys, and forget about social distancing. So, but I think the restoration of transportation is critical to for the for businesses to continue their operations.
Sir,
And of
can you give
course,
us... Go ahead,
the
sir.
the lockdown in specific areas would also give rise to certain restrictions, and would prevent some business from operating fully.
Mhm.
Sir, can you give us more details on which industries can actually survive the lockdown long term? So perhaps, during the period where there is all of these closures, they might be temporarily closed. But to what extent are you expecting, a recovery, and after all of these restrictions are eased, they are able to go get back on their feet? And to what extent are you expecting permanent long-term closures?
Well, a US-based research institute predicted that the recovery will be slow and uneven. We know for a fact that the country suffered one of the worst recession um, ever, and of course, predictably, businesses will continue to struggle in terms of recovery because the restrictions are still there. But hopefully, when these restrictions are slowly lifted, then we should expect um, better recovery.
All right, sir. But there also, of course, is a bit of a concern here, at least for the business sectors here. You have been very vocal about this whole issue of giving or at least handing out employees their 13th month pay. Is this something that businesses are amenable to now? You have the Labor Department saying that it should be prorated. Will that be a boon or a bane for the sector? And where do you plan to source this? I mean, what's the development really when it comes to the talks? There are plans for 13-month pay to be subsidized, or at least for business owners to get a loan from state banks. What's the latest on that one?
Well, we know for a fact that TB 851, which mandated the payment of 13th month pay, is an obligation on the part of businesses. But in 1975, when the presidential decree was released, the implementing rules provided for exemption, but the the Department of Labor and Employment, in its latest issuance, says that the exemption will no longer apply. So there will be no exemption, no deferment, no postponement in the payment of 13th month pay. And the Employers Confederation of the Philippines is very vocal in saying that the micro, small, and medium enterprises would find it extremely difficult to comply with this requirement
Mhm.
under the law, so that it called upon the government to provide assistance, especially to micro and small enterprises, because at the height of the quarantine restrictions during the ECQ, practically 70% of these micro and small enterprises closed down, and right now, about 50% of them are still not
Mhm.
operating. So, how do you expect micro and small enterprises to pay their employees the 13th month pay? So
Mhm.
that I think the government should provide assistance, so that the micro and small enterprises would be able to provide, to pay the 13th month pay of employees. At least, if the dole estimates that the 1.5 million workers are
Mhm.
affected, on the other hand, the Philippine Statistics Authority estimate that about 5 million workers are affected. So this would require anywhere between 3.5 million
Mhm.
to
Okay.
13 million, if I'm not mistaken.
Sir, the spending plan, so the budget has already been transmitted to the Senate. What are you advocating for? How can the government be more proactive in assisting MSMEs? So far, what has been done has been largely on the monetary policy side, diba? So we've actually had less, lower interest rates for the MSMEs to borrow. The government has been pushing for them to borrow, even for that 13-month pay issue that you have mentioned here. They've also given loan moratoriums for people in general, and even businesses. So they've extended that. What more can the government possibly do apart from perhaps aiding those who have lost their jobs?
Um, well, the Asian Development Bank suggested that there should be a phased approach in the implementation of the economic stimulus packages, because obviously uh, businesses are in different situation. There should also be a shift to digital transactions, because we know very well that micro and small enterprises are not really into digitalization. So this is an area which should be explored, and this is an area where assistance should be provided to micro, small, and medium enterprises, so that there would also be a shift uh, or a transition to work from home, because during the at the height of the pandemic, when the harsh restrictions were in place, in the case of micro, small, and medium enterprises, working from home was not a serious option. Most of a preponderant majority of micro, small, and medium enterprises opted for temporary um, layoff, and there should also be and strict monitoring of the distribution of government support programs, and of course, it is essential that there should be periodic monitoring of the situation of micro, small, and medium enterprises. I've been talking about micro, small, and medium enterprises because the micro, small, and medium enterprises
Mhm.
constitute 98% of the
Mhm.
920,000 enterprises in the, the country.
All
And
right, that's
this is how critical the micro, small enterprises.
definitely a huge representation here for the MSMEs when it comes, of course, to the business sector, and how a phased approach would be really needed for the industry to actually recover. Thank you very much, Sir Jose Roland Moya, Director General of the Employers Confederation of the Philippines. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very
Yes,
much,
sir.
Jess, and that.